Ever feel like you're being pulled in a million directions all at once?
Oh, yeah, totally. I think we all get that feeling sometimes, right?
It's like you're constantly juggling a million tasks and to-dos and never really making any real progress on what truly matters.
Right. It's so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of it all, isn't it?
Well, today on the Deep Dives, we're diving into Gary Keller's book, The One Thing, to explore this very problem and hopefully discover a solution.
Okay, sounds good.
Keller's book offers a powerful idea for achieving extraordinary results by focusing on, well, just one thing at a time.
I like that.
It's about cutting through the noise and honing in on that single most important thing that deserves your undivided attention.
Makes sense to me.
Our mission today is to help you understand how focusing small can actually lead to achieving big.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we go about finding that one thing?
Well, there's this old Russian proverb that says, if you chase two rabbits, you will not catch either one.
Ah, yeah, I've heard that one.
It perfectly illustrates the counterproductive nature of divided attention.
So true.
We need to be more like a postage stamp.
A postage stamp.
Yeah, stick to one thing until you get it where it needs to go.
Okay, I see what you mean.
And this isn't just some abstract concept. Gary Keller himself experienced this firsthand.
Oh, really?
His company was working incredibly hard, but they hit a wall,
Yeah.
Everything felt like an uphill battle.
Ugh, I hate when that happens.
It was during that difficult period that he realized his focus was spread way too thin. He was trying to do too many things at once and not giving enough attention to any one thing.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
Keller was having a conversation with a coach who was looking at his company's organizational structure and said, you need the right people in these 14 key positions.
14 key positions. That's interesting.
Keller was kind of taken aback because he thought the problems were much bigger than that. But the coach's response was, no. Jesus needed 12, but you'll need 14.
Wow, that's pretty direct.
Right. So this is a pivotal moment for Keller because it highlighted how significant breakthroughs can often hinge on a surprisingly small number of key actions or individuals.
Yeah, it's like finding those leverage points that can make a huge difference.
Exactly. So Keller decides to take this advice to heart and makes a pretty radical decision.
What did he do?
He essentially fired himself as CEO.
Whoa, he fired himself.
Well, not literally, but he stepped down so that he could laser focus on finding those 14 key people to fill those crucial roles in his company.
So he could really dedicate his time and energy to that one thing.
Exactly.
That's a pretty big commitment. I'm guessing it paid off.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Within 3 years, his company was seeing consistent 40% year-over-year growth for almost a decade. They went from a regional player to a major international force in their industry.
Yeah, that's impressive.
This experience solidified a pattern for Keller. His biggest wins always came when he was able to intensely concentrate on one thing at a time.
So it's really about quality of focus over quantity of tasks?
Exactly. And this leads us to what Keller calls going small.
Going small.
It's the idea that those who achieve truly exceptional results aren't necessarily doing a ton of things. They're strategically homing in on the core of what truly matters. They understand that when you're aiming for something truly significant, a deep, narrow focus beats a wide, shallow effort every single time.
So it's about making sure you're working on the right thing rather than just working on a lot of things.
To really picture this, think about the domino effect. You've probably seen those incredible displays with millions of dominoes falling one after another.
Yeah, I love those.
There's a group called Wager's Domino Productions, and they once set up almost 4.5 million dominoes. When that first domino fell, the chain reaction actually generated enough energy to equal an average person doing 545 push-ups.
Seriously, 545 push-ups from falling domino.
That's the power of focused energy being unleashed.
That's a pretty powerful visual.
And what's even more fascinating is that each individual domino only holds a tiny bit of potential energy. But when you line them up strategically and tip over that first crucial domino, the resulting chain reaction can be incredibly powerful. It far exceeds the initial push.
It's like a ripple effect.
Exactly. And this analogy becomes even more mind-blowing when you consider the potential of focused effort as what's called a geometric progression.
Geometric progression.
It basically means that each step builds on the last one exponentially. Imagine a set of dominoes where each one is 50% larger than the one before it.
Okay. I'm picturing it.
The 10th domino would be almost as tall as NFL quarterback Peyton Manning.
Wow, that's pretty tall.
By the 18th domino, it would rival the Leaning Tower of Pisa in height.
That's getting serious.
The 23rd domino would be taller than the Eiffel Tower.
No way.
And the 31st domino would absolutely dwarf Mount Everest. We're talking thousands of feet taller. By the time you reach the 57th domino, it would practically bridge the gap between the Earth and the Moon.
That's insane.
This illustration really drives home the point that success isn't usually about some giant leap forward, but rather a consistent, focused effort one step at a time. As Og Mandino said, it is those who concentrate on but one thing at a time who advance in this world.
It's about building momentum slowly and steadily.
And this isn't some random principle. It's something we can observe in action all around us.
So it's like the saying, success leaves clues.
Exactly.
So where can we see these clues in action?
Well, if you start looking, you'll see this one thing principle at work in all sorts of different achievements, both big and small. Take Star Wars, for example.
Okay, Star Wars.
What would you say is the biggest financial success of the Star Wars franchise?
Well, I know they've sold a ton of merchandise over the years.
You're right about that. The merchandise has raked in a massive amount of money, over $10 billion, in fact.
Wow, that's more than double what the movies have made at the box office.
Exactly. But here's the thing. According to Gary Keller, the movies themselves are actually the foundational one thing.
I see what you mean.
It's the movies that created that incredible universe, the iconic characters, the compelling storylines. Without those films, the toys, the video games, the books, all of that wouldn't exist on such a massive scale.
It's the foundation upon which everything else is built?
Right. Another interesting observation is that the one thing can actually evolve over time, especially for successful companies. Look at Apple, for example.
Okay, Apple. What's their one thing?
Well, from 1998 to 2012, their main focus shifted several times. First, it was the iMac, then it became iTunes, then the iPod, and then eventually the iPhone with the iPad also becoming a major player.
So their one thing evolved as the market and technology changed.
The key takeaway here is that while the specific one thing might change, the most successful companies are constantly asking themselves, what's our one thing right now?
It's about adapting and staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. And this principle of focusing on one thing isn't just for big companies. It's just as relevant for individuals looking to achieve extraordinary things.
I agree.
History is full of examples of one key person making a huge difference in another person's life and success. Think about Walt Disney and his brother Roy.
Oh, yeah. Roy Disney was crucial in handling the business side of things, while Walt focused on the creative vision.
Exactly. Or look at Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. His father-in-law, L.S. Robson, provided that essential early financial backing that allowed Sam to really get Walmart off the ground.
Wow. So even these massive successful ventures often had a key individual behind the scenes who helped make it happen.
Right. We see this with Albert Einstein, too. His first mentor, Max Talmud, introduced a young Einstein to crucial works in math, science, and philosophy that really shaped his thinking.
So it's often about finding that one person who believes in you and helps you unlock your potential.
Exactly. And who could forget the Beatles?
The Beatles.
They had their producer, George Martin, who was often referred to as the fifth Beatle.
Yeah, he was pretty much an honorary member of the band, right?
George Martin's musical expertise was absolutely instrumental in shaping their iconic sound. He brought a level of sophistication and polish to their music that really helped them become the global phenomenon they were.
Wow. So these examples really highlight how one key person can make a huge difference in someone's success.
There's a quote by General George S. Patton that sums this up really well. "You must be single-minded, drive for the one thing on which you have decided."
So we're seeing a pattern here, right? Focus is key.
Absolutely. And the connection between passion and skill further emphasizes the power of having a singular focus. Take the example of Impressionist painter Pat Matthews.
Pat Matthews.
He was able to turn his love for painting into a thriving career.
Really? How did he do that?
He decided to simply paint one painting every single day.
Wow, that's dedication.
It was his way of honing his craft and staying true to his passion.
So one painting a day no matter what.
Exactly. Or take Angelo Morico, Italy's most successful tour guide.
I've heard of him. He's supposed to be incredible.
Angelo's passion for Italy fueled his dedication to constantly improve his knowledge and storytelling abilities. He created an unparalleled tour experience that has made him a legend in the industry.
It's like that old saying, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
But I think it goes beyond just passion. It's about combining that passion with focused effort to develop your skills and achieve real results.
Absolutely. As legendary football coach Vince Lombardi once said, success demands singleness of purpose.
I like that.
And this principle of focusing on one thing, it even applies to building an extraordinary life overall. Think about Bill Gates.
Okay, Bill Gates.
What was his early passion?
Computers, of course.
Right. And that passion led him to develop his programming skills. Then he meets one key person, Paul Allen, who becomes his partner in Microsoft.
I think I see where this is going.
Their massive venture actually started with one simple letter to Ed Roberts, who was building the Altair 8800, one of the first personal computers.
And that letter gave them the opportunity to write code for that one computer.
Exactly. That'd be one thing led to another, and eventually Microsoft was born.
So the takeaway here is that even massive success stories often have humble beginnings rooted in a focus on one key thing.
Precisely. So we've seen that focusing on the one thing is a powerful and fundamental idea that can really help you achieve extraordinary results in various areas of your life. However, there are some common beliefs about success that can actually prevent us from fully embracing this truth.
Oh, interesting. What kind of beliefs are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about those myths and misinformation that can really cloud our judgment and lead us down the wrong paths.
It's like those limiting beliefs that we sometimes hold on to without even realizing it.
Exactly.
So what are these misleading beliefs that can hinder us from achieving our goals?
I think one of the biggest ones is the idea that everything matters equally.
Everything matters equally. I can see how that might be a problem.
If you're feeling overwhelmed by a massive to-do list, it's important to remember that not everything on that list carries the same weight.
Some things are more important than others.
Right. And to illustrate this, let's look at the work of Joseph Juran.
Joseph Juran.
He was a pioneer in the field of quality control back in the early 20th century.
Okay.
So Juran had a really interesting experience while working at General Motors in the 1930s. He was investigating a faulty card reader, and he accidentally discovered a way to decode secret messages.
No way.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool accident.
And this success led him to review research on management compensation, which was based on the work of Vilfredo Pareto, an Italian economist. Pareto had observed way back in the 19th century that wealth in Italy was not evenly distributed.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Pareto and his principle. It's the 80-20 rule, right?
Yeah, exactly. He found that 80% of the land was owned by just 20% of the people. Juran noticed a similar pattern in quality control, where he saw that a small number of issues usually caused most of the defects in a process.
So he was seeing a pattern of unequal distribution.
Right. And he started to think that maybe this wasn't just some random occurrence, but a potentially universal law. This is where the 80-20 principle or Pareto principle really comes into play.
So the idea is that 80% of your results come from just 20% of your efforts.
Exactly.
That's a pretty powerful concept.
It means that not everything you do has the same impact. Some things matter a lot more than others.
So how do we apply this principle to our lives?
Well, for starters, it means we need to shift our thinking from a regular to-do list to what we might call a success list.
The success list.
It's about identifying and prioritizing those vital few tasks that will give you the biggest bang for your buck.
So it's about focusing on the 20% that really matters.
Precisely. I've definitely seen this play out in my own life, too. You know, a small number of ideas have generated most of my results. I've had a few key clients who have been way more valuable than all the rest.
Yeah.
And a handful of investments have turned out to be the most profitable.
It's like that saying, the vital few and the trivial many.
This unequal distribution, it seems to be a pretty consistent reality in many areas of life.
So it's not about doing more, it's about doing the right things.
The author shares a great example from his own experience back in 2001. His company was growing really fast, but it wasn't getting the recognition it deserved from industry leaders.
Oh, I see. That can be frustrating.
His team decided to do something about it.
What did they do?
Well, they got together and brainstormed 100 different ways to change that perception.
100 ideas. Wow, that's a lot.
They then narrowed it down to 10 and ultimately landed on one big idea.
And what was that one idea?
He decided to write a book about becoming a top performer in their field.
He wrote a book?
Yep.
And what happened?
Well, 8 years later, that book became a national bestseller. And it eventually became part of a series that sold over 1 million copies.
Wow, so he really hit a home run with that one book.
It completely changed his company's image in a huge industry. It really shows how one focused effort can have a disproportionate impact.
It's amazing how one thing can lead to so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On a more personal level, you can think about learning a new skill.
Yeah.
The author talks about how he decided to focus on learning just one guitar scale, the Eric Johnson pentatonic scale.
The Eric Johnson pentatonic scale. I'm not a musician, but that sounds pretty specific.
It's a specific scale that's commonly used in rock music.
Okay.
And that one scale became his one thing for guitar playing.
So he went all in on learning that one specific scale.
And suddenly, it opened up a whole world for him. He was able to play all sorts of rock and roll songs that he'd always wanted to learn.
So it's like a gateway to a whole new level of playing.
Exactly. So when we understand that everything matters equally is a lie, it leads to some important big ideas to consider.
Okay, lay them on me.
First, go small.
Go small.
Focus on being productive, not just busy. Let what matters most drive your day.
Okay, so prioritize what's truly important.
Second, go extreme.
Go extreme.
Keep asking yourself what truly matters
Yeah.
until only one thing remains. Make that one thing your absolute top priority.
So really drill down to the essence of what matters most.
Third, say no.
Say no to what?
Say no to anything else until that most important work is done. Don't let distractions and less important tasks derail you from your one thing.
I like that. Protect your time and energy.
And finally, don't get trapped in the check-off game.
What check-off game?
You know, the one where you're constantly trying to complete a never-ending list of tasks? Success isn't about checking off every single item on your list. It's about doing the vital few things that truly move the needle.
So it's about quality over quantity again.
Exactly. And that brings us to the second lie, that we need to debunk the myth of multitasking.
Multitasking. Oh boy, that's a big one.
The common belief is that juggling multiple tasks at once is an efficient way to get more done, but the reality is usually quite the opposite.
It's like we're conditioned to think that being busy means being productive, but often it just means we're scattered and not really making much progress.
Exactly. And it's interesting how the term multitasking itself wasn't even used to describe people until the 1960s.
Really?
The term was first used for computers to describe their ability to quickly switch between processes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And computers are great at multitasking because they can switch between those processes incredibly fast. But for us humans, it's a different story.
Yeah, we're not machines.
While we can physically do several things at once, like walking and talking, we can't actually focus our attention on two things simultaneously. Our brains are constantly switching back and forth between tasks.
So it's more like task switching than true multitasking.
Right. And each time our brains switch tasks, it takes time and energy to reorient ourselves.
So we're not actually saving time, we're losing it in the constant switching back and forth.
Exactly. And to illustrate how multitasking can be problematic, consider situations where divided attention can have serious consequences. Think about air traffic control administering medication, or even just keeping a close eye on a child.
Yeah, those are definitely situations where focus is absolutely critical. You can't afford to be distracted. But what about more everyday situations, like at the office, for example?
Well, the modern office environment is a perfect example of this constant barrage of multitasking demands.
It's like a never-ending stream of distractions.
Exactly. We're constantly being bombarded with emails, notifications, colleagues wanting our attention.
It's no wonder it's so hard to focus these days.
Studies suggest that office workers are interrupted every 11 minutes on average.
Wow, that's crazy.
And then we spend almost a third of our day just trying to recover from those distractions and get back on track.
It's like we're constantly being pulled in different directions.
Poet Billy Collins has a great term for this. He calls it monkey mind.
Monkey mind.
It perfectly captures the illusion that we're somehow effectively handling multiple tasks, when in reality we're just fragmenting our attention and making ourselves less effective overall.
So we're really just fooling ourselves into thinking we're good at multitasking.
Exactly. The author makes a key distinction between multitasking and what he calls juggling.
Juggling, like with balls.
Right. Think about how a juggler seems to handle 3 balls at once. But in reality, they're catching and throwing each ball individually in very quick succession. That's essentially what we're doing when we're juggling multiple tasks.
Ah, so it's really just rapid task switching disguised as multitasking.
Precisely. And this task switching comes at a significant cost.
What kind of cost?
Research by Dr. David Meyer has shown that switching between tasks can actually increase the time it takes to complete them.
Really?
For simple tasks, The increase is about 25%. But for more complex tasks, it can be over 100%.
Wow, that's significant. So multitasking is actually making us less efficient, not more.
Exactly. You might think you're saving time, but you're likely losing it in that constant switching.
I'm starting to see the light here.
Our brains do have different channels that allow us to do some things simultaneously, like walking and talking, for example.
Yeah, because those activities use different parts of the brain, right?
Precisely. But focused attention that really happens in the prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex.
It's the part of the brain responsible for things like planning, decision-making, and working memory.
Okay.
When you try to intensely focus on two important things at the same time, your attention gets divided and you become less effective at both.
So it's like trying to run two demanding programs on your computer at the same time. Everything slows down.
Exactly. There's a great example of this involving driving. Imagine you're driving, and at the same time, you're trying to picture in your mind what your spouse told you about how they rearranged the furniture.
Okay, I'm trying to picture it.
The problem is that the visual processing needed for both tasks, driving and visualizing, actually interferes with each other.
Ah, I see what you mean.
You can't effectively pay attention to both the road and that mental image at the same time.
So you're either not fully paying attention to the road or you're not really picturing the furniture correctly.
Exactly. And that's the danger of multitasking and can lead to mistakes and accidents.
So what are the key takeaways here when it comes to multitasking?
The negative effects of multitasking are pretty clear: reduced brain power on each task, a lower chance of actually going back to the original task, wasted time reorienting ourselves after each switch, a distorted sense of how long things actually take, more errors, worse decisions, and increased stress.
Wow, that's quite a list.
There's a statistic that really highlights how fragmented our attention has become. Workers check their windows or emails nearly 37 times an hour on average.
37 times an hour.
That's almost once every 2 minutes.
It's like we're addicted to distractions.
So the second lie, multitasking, is really about divided attention and how it consistently leads to less effective work.
Okay, I'm getting it. Multitasking is a myth.
This brings us to the third lie, a disciplined life.
A disciplined life.
The common idea is that to achieve big things, you need to be highly disciplined in every area of your life. You know, like having this iron will and perfect self-control at all times.
Yeah, I can see how that might be appealing.
But the truth is, extraordinary results actually come from the power of selected discipline.
Selected discipline.
It's about focusing your discipline on one thing, the thing that matters most, and letting that discipline create a key foundational habit.
So it's not about being disciplined in every single area, just in the area that's most important to your success.
Exactly. And we can see a great example of this in Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps.
Michael Phelps.
He was diagnosed with ADHD as a kid and had some pretty disruptive behavior early on.
Really? I didn't know that.
But he achieved unparalleled success in the Olympics through incredibly consistent daily swimming training.
So he channeled his energy into one specific discipline.
Exactly. And his coach, Bob Bowman, has pointed out that Phelps's ability to really focus that energy into swimming was a huge part of his success.
It's about finding that one thing that you can really pour your heart and soul into.
From age 14 through the Beijing Olympics, Phelps trained 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Wow, that's intense.
He was spending up to 6 hours in the water each day.
That's incredible dedication.
And that intense focus on one discipline, it built a powerful, life-changing habit for him.
So it's about consistency over time.
Exactly. And the good news for you is that habits actually become easier to maintain over time.
Oh, really?
They require much less energy and willpower than starting them.
So it's like building momentum.
Research suggests that it takes around 66 days to reach that point where a new habit feels more natural and automatic.
Okay, so about 2 months.
By focusing your discipline on building one powerful habit related to your one thing, you can achieve amazing results without needing to be perfectly disciplined in every single area of your life.
That's encouraging. It's like finding that keystone habit that can have a ripple effect on other areas.
Exactly.
Okay, so what's the next lie we need to address?
The fourth lie is the idea that willpower is always on will call.
Willpower is always on will call. What does that mean?
It's the belief that willpower is an unlimited resource. You know, like you can just tap into it whenever you need it.
Yeah, I can see how that would be convenient.
But the reality is that willpower is a finite resource.
Yeah.
And it needs to be managed wisely.
So it's not like an endless well of energy.
There's this famous experiment called the marshmallow test.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one. The one with the kids and the marshmallows?
Exactly. Researchers gave kids a choice. They could either eat one marshmallow right away or wait a little while and get 2 marshmallows later.
And this was supposed to measure willpower.
Well, the ability to delay gratification. And the findings were really interesting. The kids who were able to resist eating the marshmallow right away and wait for the bigger reward, they tend to have greater success later in life.
Greater success in what way?
In a lot of ways, actually. They had better academic performance, higher SAT scores, greater self-worth, and they were even better at managing stress.
Wow, that's impressive.
On the flip side, the kids who couldn't wait, who ate the marshmallow right away, they were more likely to struggle with things like being overweight and even addiction later in life.
So it's like that early ability to delay gratification is a strong predictor of future success in many areas of life. But you said willpower is a finite resource, so how do we manage it effectively?
Well, just like a muscle, willpower gets tired when you use it. It needs time to recover.
So we can't just keep pushing ourselves all the time.
There was a study done by Professor Baba Shiv where he asked students to try to memorize a 7-digit number.
A 7-digit number.
And then, afterwards, he offered them a choice between cake and a healthy fruit salad.
Cake or fruit salad? That's a tough one.
Well, the students who had been trying to memorize the number were significantly more likely to choose the cake over the fruit salad.
Even though the fruit salad is probably the healthier option.
Right. And this shows how even a small mental task like memorizing a number can actually drain our willpower and make us more likely to make impulsive decisions.
So we need to be aware of how we're using our mental energy.
Exactly. What's also interesting is that our brains use a lot of energy.
They do.
Yeah. Studies have shown that when we're using a lot of willpower, our blood sugar levels actually drop. And replenishing that sugar can help improve our performance on willpower-related tasks afterwards.
So there's actually a physical component to this mental resource.
Precisely. The idea of default judgment also illustrates the limits of our willpower.
Default judgment, what's that?
Researchers studied Israeli parole board hearings, and they found something really interesting. They found that the parolees' chances of being released were actually highest in the mornings and right after breaks.
That's interesting.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe the judges were more lenient when they were well rested and had more mental energy.
That's a good guess. It's likely that the mental effort of making repeated decisions throughout the day led the judges to default to the easiest decision, which was no, when their willpower was low.
So they were more likely to just go with the default option when they were tired.
Exactly. And this has implications for you too.
In what way?
When we're mentally tired, we tend to fall back on our easiest default choices, which may not always be the best choices for us in the long run.
So we need to be aware of our default settings.
So understanding that willpower is a limited resource is crucial for making better decisions and achieving your goals. You can't just rely on it to always be there when you need it.
So what can we do to manage our willpower more effectively?
You need to be strategic about when you use it. Focus on your most important tasks when your willpower is strongest. Try to minimize unnecessary decisions throughout the day, and make sure you're properly fueling your body with good nutrition and enough sleep.
So it's like treating your willpower like a muscle that needs rest and recovery.
Exactly.